here at Peakview Farm, where we produce pasture-raised non-GMO chicken, pork, and eggs, as well as 100% grass-fed beef and lamb. One of the most popular products that we sell at the farmer's market is actually the bones of our animals that we raise, because they're used to make a healthy bone broth or stock that is rich in minerals and nutrients and supports a healthy digestive and immune function. Today, I've got Javi with me to help you learn how to make your own bone broth. And today we're going to use the stock bags that we sell. And a stock bag contains chicken carcasses or cavities that are left over after we make all of the cuts off of our chicken. Because stock is a concentrated extract of the chicken bones, we encourage you to only use chicken that are raised on chemical-free pasture and supplemented with quality non-GMO grain. Healthy chickens will produce healthy broth. What we're going to do today is we're going to put these chickens in a roasting pot. I'll let Javi do the rest while I talk about it. The reason we're putting them in a Dutch oven, we're going to roast the chicken backs first because it will give the broth a more hearty and rich flavor. So we've got them in the stock pot or the Dutch oven. We're going to sprinkle them with a little bit of salt, maybe a half a tablespoon's worth, a little bit more. A little bit more. All right, and then we're going to add a cup of water to the bottom of the pot. And we're going to put the lid on and roast them at 300 degrees for about an hour and a half, or until the juices run clear and the meat falls off the bones. There's a little bit of meat on the bones and you'll be able to tell because it'll come right off very easily once they're completely done. So we're going to set this in the oven and we'll be back after it's done. We've roasted our chicken bones in an oven at 300 degrees for an hour and a half. And as you can see, they've turned out nice and brown and the juices are running clear. There's no pink in them, so they're ready to move on to the next step. We've let our pot cool down a little bit so that we can handle these birds' bones and take some of the meat off of them to save for soup and sandwiches. So that's gonna be our next step. So we're gonna pull some of these out of here, and Javi, you can help me take some of the meat off of our chicken bones. And you can throw the skin in there, you can throw all the bones and everything that's not meat. You can start peeling the meat right off the ribs like this. And this is all pretty good meat that you can use for casserole or salads or sandwiches, whatever you want to use it for. And we're also going to just break up some of the bones and we're just going to toss them into our pot. As much meat as we can off of our chicken bones, and we've collected a little bit. It's definitely a sandwich or a salad or soup worth, so that's a bonus off of our stock bags. And the rest of the bones and fat and skin all went into the pot, and of course the kids wanted me to save the wish bones to dry out and they can make a wish later. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put enough water in our pot just to cover the bones. We don't want to put too much in or the broth will not be concentrated enough. So Javi is going to fill up our pot just to cover the bones. That should do it. Good. All right. And then to the pot, we're also going to put 1 to 2 tablespoons of organic apple cider vinegar. So we roasted our chicken. That improves the flavor. This part is going to take care of where the nutrients come from the bones. So we put 1 to 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar in with the pot, depending on how much liquid you have in the pot. I'm gonna put 2. Right, we have our chicken bones in our stock pot with water and a little bit of apple cider vinegar. We're gonna let it sit for about an hour to allow the liquid to penetrate the bones before we put the heat on. So we'll be back in about an hour. Our chicken bones have been soaking in liquid for an hour now in the apple cider vinegar liquid. And we're ready to put this into the Instapot. If you're not using an Instapot, you're using a crock pot, and this is gonna go for 24 to 36 hours on low. This, once we put it in here and turn it on, it takes about 4 hours to cook and then about an hour to cool down, so about 5 hours total. So we're gonna go ahead and put this in here. If you're using an Instapot, all you have to do is select the soup broth button, and it's ready to go, and it will let you know when it's done. With the crock pot again, you're going 24 to 36 hours before it's ready. All right, so it's done in our Instapot, and we're ready to take it out. So you carefully lift out the pot. And the next part is we basically are just gonna put our broth into jars. And we don't want all of these chicken parts floating in our broth. So we're gonna use a strainer, and we're gonna use a canning funnel. And we're using half-gallon mason jars because we go through a lot of broth with our family. But you may want to use something smaller, like a quart size or smaller. But you need a ladle to get the soup out. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna have Javiana ladle the soup out from the broth into the jar. All right, we've got our broth into our jars. It's still really hot, so we're just gonna put lids on these jars and let these cool down. Once they're cooled down to about room temperature, you can put them in the refrigerator for them to finish cooling off. I wanted to show you what's left over. Javi, if you want to dump the rest of those bones into the dish. So these bones, since they've been cooking for so long, you can see that they're very spongy and they just break when you squeeze them. Okay, so these are now safe to give to dogs, and our dog loves this as a treat. So it's a nice way to use up what's left of your chicken without wasting it or throwing it away. So this makes a nice dog treat, and we have 2 big dogs, so they can handle this no problem. You can bag it up and put it in the refrigerator and give it to your dog a little bit at a time if you don't have a big dog like we do. But again, we're gonna let these cool off, and we'll be back to show you our finished product. All right, we have allowed our chicken broth to chill in the refrigerator overnight, and now it's ready to use. And I wanted to show it to you before we use it. I want you to see this. There's a layer of fat that has floated to the top of our chicken broth. So we're going to that off to show you what that looks like. So I'm gonna have Javi skim the fat off of this. Basically, you take the spoon and just slightly go over the very top, and you can pull that out and just put it in the bowl. You can use this if you're going to make like chicken gravy, would be good if you're doing biscuits and gravy, or you can just discard this fat and use the broth itself. Now the fat, it definitely adds flavor, but if you're just wanting broth, you can transfer the broth into ice cube trays and freeze them, and then put them in Ziploc bags for future use. They'll keep about 6 months in the freezer. If you're just going to keep them refrigerated, I would use it in about 2 weeks before it'd be kind of questionable to use. So we've got the fat off, and you can see that we have a nice broth. Sometimes it gels a little more than this, and sometimes it doesn't. So don't feel like it's a failure if it doesn't look like this. So now you have a rich, flavorful chicken broth that is great for all sorts of recipes that call for chicken stock. You can also use this as a tonic to drink about 30 minutes before you eat. That is really great for your digestive health. This is what I drink a lot of times instead of coffee in the morning, so it gets my digestive system going for the day. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to showing you our next video on how to make chicken stock out of chicken feet.